All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. It is Sunshine. Today, we are in one of our longer live recorded sessions. We're taking a deep dive into the witch's path to recovery, right? Looking at this magical approach to transformation and healing. And I'm incredibly excited that you've decided to join me. So, welcome. Sit back, take a listen. Don't no pressure. We're gonna dive right into this, and I'll tell you, if you're watching me live or you happen to catch this live, I am gonna try to pay attention to the comments in the chat, so feel free. If you're watching this on replay, might be a minute till I get back to you. So let's go ahead and get started though. My name's Sunshine. I'm the pink-haired sober witch. I've also gone as the pink-haired psychic medium, Reiki master, high priestess, all kinds of good stuff. I've been developing my own gifts since I was 16 years old, and I've been practicing witchcraft pretty much that entire time as well. Uh, the last, let's see, we'll say 5 years now. It's just over 5.5, I guess, almost years. I've been doing all of this work professionally, right? Been heavy into this. And my recovery was the catalyst for it. My recovery was the catalyst for this. So my own sobriety date, I'm a recovering alcoholic, workaholic, perfectionist, and control freak is what I say. And my sobriety date is October 9th, 2019. I haven't had a drink since. And that's not saying that I haven't had the thought cross my mind. I also decided to step away from pot, grass, marijuana last year. Not my drug of choice, but I did decide to, you know, tackle life without it and see what life was going to be like. And I will say, there's definitely some benefits. Um, it's a fabulous tool for harm reduction, and I think it got me where it needed to. So, um, for us to get started today, I want to invoke the Witch's Trinity prayer. So you can go ahead if you see it on the screen. You can say it with me or you can just listen. But oh, divine universe, grant me the power of water to accept with ease and grace what I cannot change, the power of fire to invoke the courage to change the things that I can, the power of air for the clarity to know the difference, and the power of the earth to ground me in my highest vibrational path. The Witch's Serenity Prayer is one of the tools that we have in our disposal, but this workshop or webinar every single month is for us to dive into all the various tools that have been created for the witch in recovery. Today's deep dive specifically is on the 13 steps. So that's what we're going to be exploring, diving into today. Maybe you've stumbled across this webinar because you are familiar with them, you found them. Maybe you've stumbled across this webinar and have no clue about them. So we're going to explore them. We're not going to go into each of the individual steps, right? Because I do believe that's a much longer. I've tried timing it and it takes probably about 2 hours to get through. So we're just going to talk about why, start off by talking about why and like how these steps are different, right? Um, so let's go with that. Why the witch's 13 steps? Uh, we go back to October 9th of 2019. I think would have been a Tuesday, if I remember correctly, Tuesday or a Wednesday. And by that Friday, I sat down at my first AA table. I had a dear friend of mine that I knew was in recovery, and I messaged them and told them I needed help, and asked if they'd be willing to take me to a meeting. They hadn't been to one in a while, but they agreed, right? That's kind of the 12th step way. They did, and it was hard. I didn't really say much that first day. I cried. I tried to not cry, uh, but I kept coming back. That was the one thing that they told me is just to keep coming back. And I committed to doing 90 meetings in 90 days, so I did. And I don't regret it. I do think it was a huge help and a tremendous help in the early, time of my recovery because I didn't know any other way. I had already relapsed twice that year in 2019. And I knew that how I had already tried it, how I had already approached it wasn't going to work, right? But as I sat at these tables, there was something off, right? Something just, there was this, I put the words down here, this misalignment, something just fell off. Um, and, the reality is, I've come to realize that recovery, right, needs to feel aligned with your beliefs. That's why there's all sorts of different recovery paths. Right. The spiritual resonance with the program does matter. And I believe my personal belief in this is because addiction is a spiritual disease, not a mental disease. Yes, we can become physically addicted, right? You can have your literal body be physically addicted to something. You can have kind of that mental health breakdown, the depression, the anxiety, and the things that are associated, right? You can be stuck in the addictive mental patterns of, cognitive dissonance and things of that nature. But the core, the beginning of this, I believe it's a spiritual disease. We become addicted because we lack purpose, we lack self-worth, we lack the confidence to approach life in a way that truly is aligned for us. I'd beg the question, for those of you that are listening, how many of you visited the tables at AA or NA or some other recovery program and felt the same, felt like there was something in misalignment, there was something different, there was something off? Not in any way, shape, or form judging and saying it was wrong or not appropriate or anything of that nature, but just something was missing, right? That's why the Witch's 13 Steps came about for me. Something felt like it was missing. When I looked at these steps, when I worked these steps, when I reviewed these steps, and yes, I did work with a sponsor for some time, something was just missing in it. Of course. I've had this argument come up a couple of times, right? Like, why does a witch need their own steps? The 12 steps just work, right? Why can't they just, why do you have to call it something else? Why do you have to talk about it being for witches, right? And the truth is, magic, psychic abilities, and energy work are all a part of our healing. The 12-step model is rooted in specific spiritual traditions. It's very old. It's worked for a very long time, right? But it doesn't fully embrace that path of the witch. Witches honor their own sovereignty. They practice shadow work. They focus on energy and the flow to and from. They're very, very, very involved in personal power. And traditional recovery models often overlook these things. Recovery is not just about abstinence. It's about reclaiming your magic. It's about activating and embracing your psychic gifts. It's about a connection to spirit. I'd ask you, how many of you incorporate or desire to incorporate these things into your healing journey, right? That want to incorporate magic, magical rituals, spells, work of that nature, that want to be able to embrace their psychic gifts, see things, hear things, feel things, know things. And how many of you want to even be able to, connect to spirit or feel energy, are drawn to it? The other piece with the 13 steps is really the emphasis on that number 13. The number is incredibly sacred in witchcraft, right? It's deeply tied to the divine feminine, right? We have 13 lunar cycles. If you're going to go look at the number of 13 and how much it shows up as it relates to divine feminine energy, right? We think about Hecate, the goddess Hecate, very specifically comes to mind, right? This beautiful number, right? That to me had a spiritual component to it. I sat at the tables, and I think it was probably about within a month, somebody had made the comment about someone 13 stepping someone. And I looked at them and I said, what are you talking about? Like, I've never read about the 13th step. I read the book. I read everything I can get my hands on thus far. What are you talking about? And for those of you that are not familiar with it, the 13th step in a traditional recovery, table, so to speak, is this practice of a person that has been around longer taking a younger person or a less experienced person under their wings, almost in a manipulative fashion. Think about the young guy or the young woman that walks in and somebody's had 10, 15, 20 years and they decide they're going to become friends with them and take advantage of that vulnerable situation that the individual's in. And I was horrified at this. I was horrified to find out that this number that was so powerful to me, so important to me, so, related to my spiritual beliefs was being used in that fashion. And the truth is, the number 13 has been demonized by patriarchal systems just as much as addiction and personal power have been misunderstood. Think about all of the fear around the number 13, right? Unlucky 13. Where'd that come from? Right? Reclaiming that number 13 in recovery is an act both of rebellion and empowerment, right? That's why we have 13 steps, is because it matters. We're taking that number back. That's what I say. I'm taking the damn number back and I'm going to make it beautiful in the way that it's supposed to be. Which begs the question potentially of what else? What makes the witch's 13 steps different? Like I said, I'm not going to go through each and every one of the steps. It's quite an extensive. I've run it as a workshop before. Beautiful, love it. I love talking about them, but not today. I do want to touch on what makes it different, though. Three things really stuck out when I looked at them and sat down to kind of write about what I wanted to talk to you guys about. And the very first one is this divine co-creation, right? So if you think about the traditional 12 steps, we turn it over to a higher power. And, it's not really horribly that different, so to speak. But as a witch, we truly know and understand that we get to work with our ancestors, our spirit guides, the universal energy, right? And it's not just about asking for help. It's not just like turning it over and praying to God, so to speak. It's about actively engaging on a regular daily basis with these energetics and spirits. I remember the first time I sat at the tables and I made the reference of higher powers. I had somebody pull me aside afterwards and said, "Hey, by the way, I just wanted to make sure that you knew you were saying like higher powers and maybe you were making a mistake there." No, I wasn't making a mistake. Nope. The 13 steps embraces that concept of divine co-creation, of looking at the higher powers, not just as this other, one other, potential outside of us, but truly like any of these energetics that are outside of us that can help us, that can guide us, that can lead us down a path that we're meant to live. The second one that popped up to me is the shadow integration, right? So if we think about some of the 12 steps and how they're currently written in the traditional programs, you can start to realize, if you have experience with shadow work, you can start to realize how a lot of what they're doing is shadow work, right? And a lot of how things are written is to try to keep you or, have you dance around the shadow, so to speak. A witch knows and understands that we have to actually integrate our shadow, right? We're not here to necessarily fix a defect, but maybe to see that that defect isn't really something that's broken. I'm going to give you a perfect example, and we're going to go really extreme on this, right? If we were in a traditional 12-step program and somebody were to present themselves as polyamorous, dating multiple people, having multiple lovers, things of that nature, it may be seen as a defect. Whereas in the witch, doesn't see that, sees it as this shadow of desiring abundant love. It's not going to try to fix it. It's going to try to integrate it and accept it for who it is. Witches embrace this work and don't judge or suppress, but integrate and transform, right? And we do this through journaling, rituals, all sorts of things. Like we use these tools to become more aware of the unconscious self, right? In the practice of witchcraft, shadow work and this deep, like psychological work is built in. It's already built in, right? If you've been around the practice or looked into, you've heard the term shadow work. It's one of like kind of the core actions I would say a witch is going to be taking. Hold on. Uh, all right. The third one is this magical reciprocity. You know, and this is one I feel very strongly about. Uh, the traditional 12 steps talks about making amends. Okay. It talks about needing to, mm, have contrition for the things that we have done, right? What it doesn't really do is help folks understand why, right? The true like depth as to why. And the 13 steps changes it from this amends to this magical reciprocity, right? It's not just about apologizing. It's not just about, confronting what it is that you've done. It's about this energetic restoration. And as a witch, we can do spell work, we can do offerings, we can call upon our ancestors to heal and harm, not just both from this particular lifetime and what we may have done, but from this lifetime and any other lifetime prior, any other unseen realms, right? We can go beyond just the right here and the now, and we have more tools in our toolkit than just going up to someone and making amends. One of the things in my own personal experience is that, and why I had some challenges with this, is I found a lot of the violations were against myself. So it's like, how am I going to make amends to myself? That's where the steps, the 13 steps is the witch's way, started to come into play because I started to do spell work to do my own healing, to release this shame, to release the guilt, to let the things go that was causing me pain and suffering, that I was doing to cause myself pain and suffering. So I'd be curious, how many of you looked at any of these 13 steps and questioned or wondered, not 13, 12 steps, questioned and wondered, thought that there was something off on them? I can't be the only one. And I talked to a handful of folks on this. I can't be the only one. The other thing that we emphasize in the 13 steps is ritual as a daily practice, right? Ritual as being part of your recovery journey, right? Meaning not just staying sober, right? Not just not even just praying. I mean, I do, I myself, it's silly. I think a lot of times people think of, prayer as being a religious thing. And I think of prayer as an easy way to say I'm doing a verbal invocation on a regular basis, a verbal ritual. And it's these daily rituals that start to anchor you into your power as a witch, right? This could be pulling a tarot card. This could be just lighting a candle. This could be the type of tea that you drink in the morning, the coffee, anything that it is. And it's these little rituals that we now, as a witch, start to embed within our daily practice that anchors us not just in our sobriety, but in our magic. And when we are tied in with our magic, like in that belief, in that practice, that's when the things like signs, synchronicities, shifts, changes, being able to manifest almost anything that you may desire starts to become really easy. So as a witch, we begin to use all of these things, our psychic abilities, our magic, energy, heal, all of these things to start to create this life that we were promised, right? That's why we step into recovery. We don't step into recovery because we like to have a difficult life, because we just want to give something up. We do it because we want a different life. We want a life that's filled with peace, love, happiness, hope, joy, prosperity, good health, right? That's why we step into recovery. We want something different. We're tired of living in the pain and the suffering that came not just with addiction, but with the life we once had. So for you listening, what do you do? I'm going to pause and ask you that. What do you do? What is a simple ritual that you already do, or something that you could start doing that aligns you with your magic? Maybe pulling a tarot card, maybe saying an affirmation. I am strong. I am capable. I am ready to do amazing things. Anchoring your sobriety into your magic. One of the things that I do almost every single day. Don't get me wrong, life gets a little bit crazy, and I have a sentiment around what's time. What really indicates a day. Maybe my days are 72 hours long. Uh, I pull cards pretty much every single day, and I have a invocation that I say pretty much every single day. And I've done that for the last 5 years. And I will probably continue to do that, and maybe other things. I've added other things, taken them, but those are my core ones right there. My core ones, pulling my cards and doing my daily prayer, my daily invocation. What's something you could do that keeps you anchored in your sobriety and your magic every single day? The other thing that the 13 steps talks about and starts to share in, and this is, you know, we can't do this alone. It's very clear. The 13 steps lay this out very clearly, right? Addiction loves isolation. It loves it. If you think about any person that has really succumbed to their addiction, there's a high probability that they spend a lot of time by themselves. And if they aren't spending a lot of times by themselves, they are trying to find out ways to be by themselves, whether it's to use, whether it's to sit in shame and guilt, whatever it is, right? Addiction loves isolation. If addiction can get you alone, there is a higher probability it can get you to slip up, to fuck up. I can't tell you this. I should say, I can tell you this. In over 5 years, the only times that I have ever thought about drinking, I've been by myself. You want to know the number one time? The number one time has been when I've been traveling alone. So I've done fairs and shows and expos and things, and I've been traveling alone, and I've got to go into a grocery store to pick up some groceries for the weekend. And I walk into that store and I'm by myself, and I hear that little addiction demon in my head go, you picked up something to drink, no one would know. It loves getting you alone, right? And when we are solitary in our recovery, our ability to really deeply heal is limited. Often, when people trigger us, we learn more about ourselves, right? We learn more about ourselves. But the cool thing is witchcraft is rooted both in that personal sovereignty, right? In that your path is your way and nobody else gets to choose otherwise, right? This personal empowerment and collective energy, right? I don't know a single witch out there that has never explored, participated, I don't care what it is, both, right? Both the solitary work as well as the collective work, right? Witchcraft embraces all sorts of paths, many different ways, and the power of collective gathering to amplify healing power. I don't think it's very different than, we'll say, any type of congregation, church, or anything of that nature. But the fact is that there is no judgment on the individual's choice of path. There's no dogma that has to be followed. That is a big, huge difference. That personal sovereignty is huge, right? I can't emphasize the importance of finding or creating, right? Finding one or creating your own sober witch community, a group of witches that are in recovery together. Because what you can do together as you gather, I don't think I put it in here, but that's the 13th step right there. Getting together, doing ritual, helping to combat addiction and to heal the world, right? At the end of the day, my dear friends, recovery as a witch is just different, right? It's just different. I'm not saying it's better. And I'm not saying that you can't recover using the traditional 12 steps or the other tools that are out there. But I will tell you, if you identify as a witch, if you're called to be a witch, if you're called to embrace things like psychic abilities, magic, spells, energy, right? You're called to embrace all of the things, then you're being called to embrace your inner witch. And doing so is going to unleash, you know, this beautiful innate empowerment that you may never have experienced before, right? Recovery as a witch, it's just different. I pull cards. I see dead people, right? I know and I understand the energetic impact of other people on me. I know that if I go into certain places and there's addiction that's ripe, that I may need more protection of. Concerts, big events with alcohol. I kind of avoid places with a lot of drug use, right? Because I know and understand energy. I know and understand my own psychic abilities. So recovery as a witch, it's just different. I've been checking to see if we've got anybody watching this live. Like I said, I live stream this. Easiest for me. I'm not gonna fib. It's a lot easier to live stream. But if you do have any questions, I'd encourage you to reach out. Uh, I don't have it up here, but you can always reach out and find me on any of the the website, headmistress at illuminateunschool.com, sunshine at sunshinereadings.com. You can find, reach out and talk to me. I'd love to hear if you've got a question, you've got a comment, you liked what you heard, uh, you don't like what you heard. I'd still love to hear it. Still love to hear it. And I would encourage you to join us again next month. We'll be doing this webinar every single month. I forget if it's the exact same date. I don't think it is. But you can always sign up in advance. We'll continue to dive deeper into the recovery tools created specifically for a witch. Maybe I'll do the steps and dive deeply into those. Maybe we'll go into some of the other tools. I don't know. We'll find out. I usually ask Spirit to let me know a couple of days ahead of time. But join us again next month. And if by chance you are ready for more, you're like, hey, I love this, love what you're saying, love what you're talking about, I want more. There's a couple of things that I've got for you. Number one, soberwitch.life. Go ahead and visit that website. You can download the Sober Witch Life mobile app. It's the only recovery app made for witches by witches, and it's home of the free Sober Witches Toolkit. That's right. All of the tools that have been created are available to you absolutely free. You'll also see the Grimoire of Recovery in there. So whole sorts of articles with spells, rituals, shadow work, all sorts of things that you need. And access to the 3 free events that I host. Once is hosted once a week, once is once a month, which is this one, and then once every quarter. So would absolutely love to have you grab and take a look at that. And last but not least, as I said, surrounding yourself with other witches in recovery. We are now have applications open. You can join the Recovery Coven, right? IlluminateUnschool.com. If you join now, you'll get 30 days free. The Recovery Coven is a sacred and exclusive community for witches in recovery. I have designed it to help members stay grounded, empowered, connected with all of their witchcraft practices. And we've got the weekly recovery circles, psychic development workshops, the witching hour for deepening your spell crafting. We've sound healing every single month. We introduced this past month the creative alchemy for recovery workshop. You know, new moon intention setting, full moon gratitude circles, you name it, and access to all the digital courses that I've created as well. So I'd love to have you reach out. And until next time, my dear friends, much love from me to you.